pancreas and the L liver, which helped rebuild the pancreas and the liver, with the number 2 builder. And she continues to take this because she likes her muscles being nice and strong. She finds that if she goes off of these, because it did weaken her pancreas some, that she isn't as strong. And so she continues to take these all the time because it's made her muscles really strong. She likes being strong and having her muscles. And she says, Scott, you ought to do this too. And I'm doing it, but I'm not as good at, the doctor needs to be his own physician sometimes, and you're not very good. But these are really good for me too, to keep my muscle mass doing good. So I need to remember to take those. We're going to go on. The other types of diabetes result from specific genetic conditions, such as maturity onset diabetes of youth, which, it's interesting, the doctors are calling this, I call them genetic weaknesses from the breakages and toxins that we're getting in our DNA and in our organs. Not necessarily, genetic conditions, except that they're being caused by all of the toxins and radiation we're being exposed to. Drugs can cause it because they're toxins in the body. Surgery can cause it because anytime you have surgery, you have anesthesia, and anesthesia is a toxin. It is a severe toxin. They have the level of anesthesia and the level of death, and there's not much difference between those two. So they used to have 10% of people die from surgical complications of anesthesia. And then they got machines that would help them keep above that lethal range of anesthetic, and that helped people not die so much from anesthesia. But when I started medical school, 10% of the people undergoing surgery died from complications of anesthetic. Isn't that amazing? So it was a toxin, and we're getting exposed to toxins all the time. And so I think toxins are causing a lot of the diabetes. And the latent autoimmune diabetes is an interesting term. Doctors say autoimmune when they believe your body's attacking itself. But your body doesn't just attack itself for no reason. Usually there's a reason, and most often it's either viruses or petrochemicals, because your body's trying to remove these things out of there. So it attacks the cells that are full of these things, and in attacking those cells, it actually causes inflammation, and the immune cells get toxic because they're trying to carry away these toxins. They grab them into their little cell bodies and they get sick. And so you get this stuck inflammation in there, and I believe a lot of autoimmune is just our body's response to toxins and infectants. So LADA, in my opinion, is caused by toxins and viruses that get in the cells. Oh, I do have these pictures. This is a foot complication from diabetes. Big old ulcer on the bottom of the foot. It literally eats up the tissue, and the tissue dies, I believe, because of the neuropathy of the diabetes. And the neuropathy can be reversed, believe it or not, by bringing more vital force back to your system and to your nervous system through meditation, through detoxing. So foot fungus, and when it gets into the toes, it's a sign it's in your nervous system. Especially the big toe represents the brain. And if you get toenail fungus in your big toe, you've got fungus in the brain. This is another picture with ulceration on the top of the foot. This whole nerve has been killed, so there's no vital force going to the tissues, and the tissues die. Here's gangrene, and all of you have heard my story of healing a black lady who had this, who was praying for healing. I believe the healing worked because we brought vital force back into her body, and and instantly her feet were repaired and she didn't need to have them removed. 80% of adults recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes have these autoantibodies that help insulin to work, but the antibodies actually attack the insulin, and you become have autoantibodies against insulin, which is not good. And I believe that's due to viruses getting into the cells that produce the insulin. The insulin itself gets infected with the viruses, and so our body attacks the insulin. And then it continues to attack the insulin because it believes it's a foreign body. So a lot of people using metformin metformin really pushes the pancreas. And they took it off the market back in the 60s, and then they resurrected it for women with polycystic ovarian disease and diabetics. And they're actually finding that it's causing people to go into type 1 diabetes faster. So they're needing insulin. So now there's the other question, is Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes? I believe it is, because when people eat a lot of sugars and their blood sugars stay high, they get these amyloid plaques, and amyloid means fungus-like. So fungus is in the brain and causes Alzheimer's. And my mom, when I put her on, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about 7 years ago. I put her on antifungals, amloban, and this other stuff called Prevagen. And her brain is back, and she's actually, when I talk to her now, it's like she remembers everything. Like, I took her Prevagen away because she had stockpiled it. I took 2 bottles of it, and she got really ticked at me and told me, please don't take away my medicine, because it's, you know, it's an herb that helps with the brain. And, you know, we used to think there was just type 2 two types of diabetes, but now they're actually feeling that overeating, you know, the SAD diet, the standard American diet, is creating a lot of type 2 diabetes, because we're eating a lot of processed foods that are tainted with GMOs and those type of things, and those cause diabetes. And the idea that Alzheimer's might be type 3 diabetes has been around since 2005, but the pharmaceutical industry has actually suppressed this evidence. And, you know, the food for thought, what you eat may be killing your brain, is very true, because they're actually showing now that not the diabetes, but Alzheimer's is becoming much more prevalent with diabetics. And so our rest homes are getting filled up with people with Alzheimer's and diabetes and the complications of all this, and they're very concerned that it's going to cost more and more as we get into, you know, the baby boomers getting these diseases, and it's going to just chew up all the health care dollars, and that's why they're making Obamacare to you know, take less care of us and see what happens. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Neuropathologist named Alzheimer noticed a century ago that the protein was taking place of normal cells in the brain. They called them beta amyloid plaques, and they said it was a mystery. However, it's becoming clear that this is due to a lack of insulin or insulin resistance, and it impairs cognition, but seems to be implicated in the formation of these plaques because your sugar levels are so dang high. And they're not, you know, saying that, but I'm telling you, it's due to fungus that gets into the brain. And they found that in rats' brains, when you block the path of insulin, there's actually insulin receptors in the brain, and they help the brain in cognition. And when insulin becomes deficient in the brain, it actually causes diseases of memory and memory loss. So they're finding not only the high sugars, but the low insulin in the brain. And the reason why is the brain cells live off of sugar and fats. And most of us have been pulled off of fats. They've increased statins, which lowers cholesterol and fats. And so our brain's not getting sufficient fat. We had a lady stay at our house recently, and Sarika Cerno House, and she is involved highly in the gut. And she kept saying, Scott, whatever happens to the gut also happens in the brain. And she was really big into fats and lard, and, you know, the diet we used to eat years and years ago, that we didn't worry about our cholesterol and fats, and she's skinny as a rail, and her brain is just sharp as a tack, and she says she eats 50% fats in her diet. Wow. You know, and we're having all the medical profession say, oh, fats are bad, you got to stay away from fats and cholesterol and all this, and we got to lower your fats and cholesterol with statin drugs, and it's actually causing more Alzheimer's.
Cholesterol isn't as bad as they want you to think it is either.
Oh, absolutely. I believe cholesterol is a sign of inflammation and lack of vitamin D. Yeah, because when the body lacks vitamin D, the liver will produce more cholesterol in hopes that you'll see sunlight on your skin and convert it to D1, which cholesterol in sunlight produces vitamin D1, which is a hormone. Then it goes to the liver, and all our livers are toxic, and so they can't convert it into D2, and then the D2 goes to our kidneys, which are suffering from all the high sugars and diabetes and everything, to convert to D3. And so the whole cycle has been disrupted, so we're producing lots of cholesterol in hopes that we'll produce D1. And the doctors are lowering cholesterol with these statins, and it's making us vitamin D deficient, and now they're starting to study the vitamin D that they've caused to be deficient, and they're telling people take lots of vitamin D3, but the core cause is we're not getting enough sunlight to convert our cholesterol.
Modern medicine is designed to keep you sick.
Oh, it's
one way or the other.
It's interesting, all of the things. So the pre-diabetes usually will progress to full-blown diabetes type 1. Weight loss, increased physical activity helps prevent or delay the onset of type 2 diabetes, and may even return the blood glucose levels to normal. So getting out and increasing your physical activity, doing weight loss, definitely helps with diabetics. Type 2. Now type 1, you're not producing insulin, so you've got to take insulin. So type 1 is beta cell destruction, either fluke seeded up or autoimmune or viruses, and kills off all the cells producing insulin in our body. You become insulin dependent when that happens. Type 2 is insulin resistant or deficiency in insulin secretion. They found that in autopsies, our pancreases are weighing twice as much, 2 to 3 times as much as they did a century ago. And this is due to our pancreases are trying to keep up with all the glucose that we're getting in our body, all the sugars, carbohydrates. They're also finding that the toxicity of the chemicals we're producing is causing the pancreas not to be able to produce as much insulin. So it's drug or chemical induced diabetes. Lifestyle changes. They found that if you can get people to increase their physical activity by walking for 2.5 hours each week, that's a half hour, 5 days a week. You know, all of us should be doing this, and yet a lot of us, you know, we just don't. We don't. But they found that you don't need intense activity. You just need to have activity. Instead of, you know, sitting and watching TV, you should go for a walk. The sitting and watching TV pulls you into the matrix too, which causes other problems with stress and our nervous system. So anyway, they found that if you can detox people also, it reduces diabetes. Now there's this glucagon-like peptide that tells the pancreas to release insulin when carbohydrates are being digested, stimulates the beta cells to release the insulin when blood sugars are too high. They're finding pancreases, when they're toxic, don't produce this glucagon-like peptide. When sugars are too low in the blood, glucagon, another hormone released from the pancreas, tells the liver to release stored sugars. Well, high fructose corn syrup and other poisons make it so you don't produce this hormone and you get a fatty liver. So a lot of people are getting these big gut, and it's due to fatty liver. And they store all of the fats in the omentum, which is a layer that lays on the gut. When you do surgery, you go inside and you cut into the fascia. The thing you immediately see is the omentum, which is a stored fat layer in the gut that kind of helps protect the gut. And this gets huge when you have diabetes and problems with lack of glucagon, because you get all this stored fat in your gut. And we can reverse that by getting rid of the toxins. So management of diabetes involve diet and exercise. I believe this just leads to insulin dependence, because the drugs eventually toxify the pancreas and you don't produce any insulin, so you end up having to have insulin therapy. Diet is very important. They found when people have gone off processed foods, gone to organic vegetables and organic fruits, they actually go from having diabetes to it disappearing and being gone. Now, the other thing that they found, however, is that you need to increase good fats in your diet. I had people on omega-3s back in the 90s, and I was having them go on omega-3s because they're a very good type of fat. Well, the doctors in town, I was putting people with diabetes on these omega-3s, and they were telling these people with omega-3, taking the omega-3s, it's going to make your diabetes worse. And the fact of the matter was, they were so backward in their thinking. They were being taught that good fats actually caused increased diabetes, increased calories, and all this stuff, but they didn't feed into the fact these omega-3s actually help get rid of neuropathy, help insulate the nervous system, so you get less complications from your diabetes. And they found good fats also help the nephrons in the kidneys, and it helps protect the eyes. Isn't that interesting? All of these things that the medical profession were saying, no, don't take those things because it'll make your diabetes worse, they actually help protect you when you do have diabetes. Now, they're finding that your dietary fat intake should be at least a third of your calories, if not more. Sarika's saying 50%. And so, I'm really happy that Sarika's around, because when margarine came out, I was like, give me my butter. I can't stand this margarine, because the margarine, the whole society was saying how bad butter was for you and you should eat margarine. This was back in the 70s. And there was something about it that just felt so wrong. And so I just kept buying butter, and I said, you guys go ahead and eat your margarine, but I'm going to eat butter. And the butter was actually better for you, So, and they're finding that ghee, or purified butter, you just kind of take the dairy solids out. They're finding ghee is even better. So, you can eat as much ghee as you want. And so it's very, very interesting. Now, the other thing they're finding is that more good protein is very important. And they're finding that grass-fed animals are very good because they have the omega-3s, 6, and 9s. And the protein is a better protein that helps build your muscle and build the tissues and build the proteins that you need. And we're all protein deficient, believe it or not. And it's due to all the toxins and chemicals, because in animals that are fed GMO product, that are fed GMO and all the toxins, there's toxins on food.